Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
The obvious reason for inflation is that the government printed a zillion amount of more money than it had.
We are seeking manufacturers from around the globe who may have available product.
Every spark out there is going to start a new fire.
UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real.
Can do things that no earthbound vehicle can do.
We want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. News and Views, Tom, Benny, Clark, and you. Election Day, primary election day, 2022. Now, I know this is just Pitt County, but my hunch is these numbers are probably going to be fairly similar throughout our listening area. I would say as you get down towards Onslow County, it's a little bit more conservative. It's a lot more conservative in some circles. And perhaps their numbers are going to be a little bit higher. But in Pitt County, the election turnout, not enormous, 14.9% of the total number of voters that could vote. Compare that in 2018, it was 12.6. Back in 2014, it is 11.6. So it is higher than two other recent primary midterm elections. That's why I go back to 2018 and 2014. Those are the last midterms. I would say that, and by the way, there's an individual who is working at one of the polling places whom I sleep with, and she has said at their polling place, the overwhelming number of Republicans as compared to Democrats. She seemed to think it was like somewhere around 80-20.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing that was really interesting, she said, was the vast number of unaffiliated independent voters that have come in have asked for a Republican ballot.
Yeah, it was either today or yesterday. Carolina Journal reported statewide that number was 62% going
in early voting.
Voting,
but still, that's pretty significant. Now, I saw that same article, and if you look at the early voting numbers, according to the North Carolina Board of Education, 577,232 voters cast early ballots. 290,000 requested a Democrat ballot. 284,000 requested a Republican ballot. That is giving the Democrats a 50.3 percentage advantage to 49.3. So basically a percentage point advantage for the Democrats. But put that into context. Two things in context. One, Democrats always come out and vote early in greater number than Republicans. Mm-hmm. Republicans are, they're conservative. They want to do the things that they've always done, and that one of those old-fashioned things that they've always done is vote on Election Day. I'm one of those people in that category. But also, to put it in context, in 2020, the number for Democrats, again, this year it was 50% to 49%. In 2020, the Democrats were 68% of the early ballots.
Wow.
So as Benny and I were talking before we went on the air, that's not good news for the Democrats. Those numbers are now. Granted, I know it's a primary, and you look at the primary and you say, okay, well, in the U.S. Senate race, it's not that big of a race for the Democrats. That's true. It's much more competitive for the Republicans. You look at some of the district race or the congressional races, and you could say the same thing. For example, in District 1, you had 8 Republicans running. Basically, I know there's more than 2 Democrats running, but there's really only 2 viable Democrats running in the Democratic primary. But still, the enthusiasm, I think, is going to carry over to the general election. I think a big reason why a number of these Democrat numbers are down is they're embarrassed to be a Democrat. Mm. I mean, the number of people that say that, according to a new poll that was out, I think it was just out yesterday, the number of people that think that that the United States is on the wrong track is north. It's almost 70. I think it was 78%, something like that.
It was. Yeah. It was in the upper 70s. And I mean, to your point, what's there for the Democrats to go vote against? Because it's not a lot there for you could say they're going to vote for.
Right.
I'm sure some Trump supporters that are always been Trump supporters. I voted for Donald Trump, but I won't. I didn't vote for him in the primary. I mean, you could say, well, if Donald Trump gets in the presidential election next time, that gives the Democrats something to vote against, because unless things change, they're not going to have anything to vote for in the next presidential election.
Yeah,
I'm afraid if things don't change, we may not have a country left if things keep going the way they're going.
And even liberals are thinking that. People that say, I love this country, but I'm one of the naive, useful idiots that think the Democrat policies are actually kind and wonderful, and so therefore I'm going to vote Democrat. I don't like those harsh Republicans, where they're seeing how far it has gone. They're saying it is destroying our country. And quite frankly, I don't think the argument that Donald Trump, I don't like his tweets, that's just not going to hold water. I mean, it's just not going to hold water this next time.
Well, do you ever remember a primary, and I think it's some of this in the Democrat, much more so on the Republican side, but do you ever remember a primary where the opponents really, just really went after each other like this time? And,
they are, yeah.
And even on the Democrat side, I kind of started paying a little bit more attention to it the last couple of weeks, just because I hadn't paid any attention to it.
They're throwing some mud.
They're throwing some mud over there. And when you go to these other, the Madison-Cawthorn race is kind of a national thing, and as well as the District 1 in North Carolina with, Sandy Smith and Sandy Robertson going after each other. But even some of these other districts in North Carolina, there's some arrows being thrown at each other, just more so than I ever remember.
Well, unfortunately, it's true. It is. You can't argue this point that negative advertising works. It does. And people hear something, they hear something nasty. If you're undecided, if you're thinking, okay, both these people look pretty good, both of them say they're conservative, both of them are saying the right things, and suddenly you hear something that, this guy, used to kick his dog. Everything else is the same. I don't like dog kickers.
And it happens every election time. The polls and studies will say, well, people, I just don't like this negative advertising. But they work.
Yeah.
They work big time, because I hear people all the time that know nothing about the Senate race. I got to vote for Ted Budd because and all they've seen is this negative advertising, and it works.
I've actually heard some people say today, I can't vote for Ted Budd because of those negative ads.
I actually have heard that too, and it said the same thing. They can't put a finger on it other than that. Well, that's all he does is attack his opponents. He doesn't say anything about himself, and so I guess he would argue, well, hey, they're not my ads; they're somebody else's ads. Some of these PACs or whatever.
Yeah, the sad truth, and maybe it'll change this year because the country is in such dire straits. But the sad truth is the average person that walks into the voting booth has no clue who to vote for or what they stand for.
Well, and I don't mind answering these texts and phone calls, but you're probably just like me. You've had a lot of texts and phone calls. Hey, what do you think about this? It really is hard to get unbiased. And of course, you could argue that I'm not unbiased opinion, but it's hard to get unbiased opinions about candidates because everything if you Google them, you're going to just see a negative this, negative that.
Well, that's why I try, and I know you do as well. Talk about the issues, talk about the stories, and try to give as much information on the candidates. But we don't come on this program and say you need to go out and vote for so and so. Now, some people might listen in and say, "Oh, the things you have said about so and so." Well, if we're saying something, it's out of a news story or it's something that we have heard from a very reliable source, and we're passing that information on. But we're not telling you who to vote for. We do hope our listeners listen in and find our information helpful in how to vote. But again, that decision is up to you. We will find out by probably not too late into the evening, I would think, who the winners are going to be in these congressional races. The Supreme Court races are going to be interesting to find out who wins. There's some good candidates that are running against each other. There's some other candidates that are running on the Republican side in the appeals court race that some people have said have some questions about that individual. Anyway, we'll cover most of that tomorrow.
We had let's see, Beth Freshwater Smith. That's the only judicial person we had on the air. Is that correct?
Yeah. It'll be fun when we get into the general election. We'll have many more folks on. You're talking about the situation with the Democrats slinging mud. Interestingly, already just a couple of days before the primary, we started seeing ads come out that really concern the general election. Apparently, the Republican Senatorial Committee, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, has already decided that the Democrat U.S. candidate, Cheri Beasley, will win her race, which a lot of people have pretty much acknowledged that. The individual running against her pretty much threw in the towel. But there's an article by Mitch Kokai out of the Carolina Journal talking about a new ad from the U.S. or the National Republican Senatorial Campaign, calling into question some campaign material that Beasley has put out where she says, "I'll never stop fighting to make North Carolina safe." Their new ad is only a 30-second ad, and they don't go into a lot of detail, although Mitch Kokai in his article goes into a lot of detail, but saying, wait a minute, her record as a justice on the North Carolina Supreme Court does not add up to the statement that I'll never stop fighting to make North Carolina safe. And Mitch goes into several different cases that she ruled on. One of those cases is State versus Robinson, which is mentioned in this ad briefly. That's from August 2020. Beasley wrote that the majority opinion for a 4-3 split at the state Supreme Court. Defendant Marcus Raymond Robinson had been sentenced to death for a 1994 murder connected to a robbery where he shot a 17-year-old victim in the face. 26 years later, Beasley and 3 of her colleagues vacated Robinson's death sentence. They focused on a state law called the Racial Justice Act. You might remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Sadie and I talking about that years ago. The law had allowed death row inmates to use statistics totally unrelated to their particular case. But the statistics that they could use were, okay, well, look, there appears to be too many African Americans in prison. Therefore, you cannot actually carry out the sentence against me, the death row sentence against me, because of these statistics. Dissenting justices would have sent Robinson back to a trial court for another hearing. Then Associate Justice, now Chief Justice, Paul Newby, the court's only Republican at the time, skewered Beasley's opinion, saying, as monarch King Louis XVI once famously said, "It is legal because it's my will." Today, 4 justices of this court adopt the same approach into the law, violating the norms of appellate review and disregarding or distorting precedent as necessary to reach their desired result. Apparently, in their view, the law is whatever they say it is. So not much has changed at the North Carolina Supreme Court, as we've seen that happen a couple of times this year. The majority decision ended up commuting Robinson's death sentence to a life imprisonment. The second case, State versus White, dates back to May of 2019, 3 months after Cooper installed Beasley as Chief Justice. Remember, Beasley wasn't elected, she was installed.
Yeah, in fact, when Cooper appointed her, he kind of broke precedents of appointing the most experienced judge. Instead, just like Democrats do, liberal,
check the box.
Check the box. Nothing against Miss Beasley, but she happened to check the boxes of being a woman, an African American woman,
and a highly partisan liberal,
and extremely partisan. And that Racial Justice Act, back to that, I remember when that came out, reading up on that. That quite possibly could have been the most.
I can't believe it's constitutional.
Constitutionally unsound thing that's ever been passed. It's just amazing.
In this White case, the defendant confessed to putting this in writing, that he sexually molested a 7-year-old girl, but the lawyers argued that his conviction should be thrown out because it failed to mention the victim by name. And now there's a 7-year-old girl. They were trying to protect the girl, and they only referred to the girl as victim number 1. And Beasley said, yeah, the lawyers are right. You didn't mention them by name, so therefore it's really not a valid conviction. Even liberal Democrat Justice Michael Morgan rejected Beasley's reasoning in a dissent. He critiqued Beasley's narrow and rigid interpretation and the application of law. In a separate dissent, Newby argued that the disputed indictment has caused the defendant no harm. Once again, a child victim must endure the emotional distress and indignities of another trial because of a purely legal technicality, Newby wrote. There's another, a third case out there, State versus Keller. Beasley's 5-2 decision in that dispute ordered a new trial for a man who had been caught soliciting online sex. The defendant thought he was soliciting a 15-year-old boy. He was actually propositioning a police detective. And Beasley came out and said, well, it was really entrapment. So therefore, we need to go ahead and let him off. I bring that up to say that this woman will be running probably against Ted Budd. Now, they're already spending, the National Republican Senatorial Committee has already earmarked $1 million for this ad that they're putting out there. But my goodness, you're going to see more and more and more of this. And of all the years to have a terrible record on criminal justice, this is not the year for Beasley to be running with that type of a record.
You would think so, but I know the Democrats will spend an awful lot of money. In that it'll be a record because North Carolina is, it's one of those. Both parties have got to have it.
Yeah,
really.
Henry Hinton can go out and order his new car.
Yeah.
And we got to take a time out. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you Farm to Fork Beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to Fork Beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
Fantastic Sam's Cut and Color is hiring stylists. If you're driven, creative, and ready to make an impact, then we're looking for you. We offer competitive salaries, flexible schedules, and professional training with the newest technologies and equipment in the industry. Stop by your local Fantastic Sam's today and show us what you've got. Apply at locations in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Morehead City, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Fantastic Sam's, real salon experience, real savings, real fantastic.
It's only 8 a.m. and it's going to be another hot one. Today's high is 85 degrees with lows ranging in the upper 50s. Tomorrow's more of the same, plus some light wind coming in from the northeast. Coming up at 8:30, Paulstown exclusive.
Babe, it's 8 a.m.
Fried chicken, better with Pepsi.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers in Greenville, plus the all-new Tiebreakers in Winterville. Do real burgers better than anybody. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, real burgers at its best.
Everybody loves burgers.
Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
Join the show, 252-561-TALK. News and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back in. Clear skies tonight, a low of 57. Good sleeping weather. Tomorrow, mainly sunny, a high of 86. Thursday, partly cloudy, a high of 93. So it's going to warm up as the week goes on. But really between now and Monday, although Monday cools down quite a bit. Monday, it drops down to 76 degrees. But all in all, lots of sunshine. So get out and enjoy. Warmer weather is here. What a better way to enjoy the outdoors with family and friends than being greenside or poolside. Voted best golf course in Greenville 3 years in a row, Ironwood Golf and Country Club is waiving all initiation fees and wants you to join in the fun and become a member today. Not a golfer? Ironwood's new social membership includes access to their competition-sized swimming pool, clay surface tennis courts, and member-only full-service restaurant. For more information, contact Membership Director Jenna Doyle. Her number is 252-752-4653. So yesterday, the Senate voted on that $40 billion package for Ukraine. There were 11 senators that voted against it. 81 voted for it. I'm assuming there were 8 that did not vote. Those who voted against the bill, Mike Braun of Indiana, Bill Hagerty and Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, John Bozeman of Arkansas, Cynthia Loomis of Wyoming, Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, Roger Marshall of Kansas, Mike Crapo of Idaho, Josh Hawley of Missouri. They voted to block the bill. I thought there was a great point made by Josh Hawley. I mean, all of them said, look, we cannot afford this. And secondly, they said there's a lot of pork in this thing, which there is. I mean, it was when you get something through this quickly, the Democrats are going to put something in there that ought not to be in there. But the other thing that I thought Josh Hawley made a great point of was, listen, we're staying up to the plate. We've already given them a lot, and we're coming up with $40 billion. And what are the European countries doing? Here we are, once again, bailing out the rest of the world. And listen, I feel for the Ukrainian people. I really do. And I realize they need help. But boy, when your family's drowning, do you throw the life preserver over to the next lifeboat over? I mean, I know we're not in as bad shape as Ukraine is, and I hear that, and I understand that Russia is our adversary. I understand that. But I would have to agree with the 11 that voted against this. I can only speculate. I did not see a list of the senators that voted for the $40 billion package, but I can only speculate that Burr and Tillis voted for it.
Yeah, I'd like to get the position of Greg Murphy voted for it. I'd like to get his position of why. I'd like to get Tom Tillis's, if they want to call in and give us their reason why. But, as I remember looking at it, that 40 amount, some of that was for agricultural assistance. I think it was like 8 or 10 billion, right? If I got the numbers right, 8 or 10 of the 40.
Yeah,
I think
you know more specifics of the details.
I think 8 or 10 of it was like that. Basically, Joe Biden, the
slush fund.
Well, he had the executive authority. So, okay, so what's the controls on that? I mean, and I just.
Well, half of it goes to Hunter, and the other half goes to the big guy.
I mean, we're not in a position, to your point, we're not in a position. We've already done a lot. I respect the Ukrainian people. The one thing that Donald Trump did, and he was mocked about it, I mean, he was holding Europe's feet to the fire for taking care of themselves. And where are they in all this? How much are they going to put up?
Yeah. I mean, now when Trump was there, he said you're going to have to pony up, and guess what? They ponied up. Now we're back to like it was before. Okay, we're gonna. Don't worry, Uncle Sam will pay it all.
That's
Don't
right.
you poor people worry.
Open checkbook.
561-8255. Randy from Greenville has been waiting patiently. Hey, Randy.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to say, I think we have some big problems in the Republican Party. I mean, I know that's like duh, but for instance, when you got like 10 or 11 people running in District 1.
There's actually 8, but yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, yeah, and there's a couple other races kind of similar to that. It's confusing to everybody. You got the candidates tearing each other apart, while the Democrats only have, 1 or 2 at most. And, you see that it's just bad. And it's just bad for spending all the money that could be spent behind one solid candidate. You know, they need to get these people together and say, look, some of you, you know, it's nice that you want to run and serve, but realistically, this isn't your year. This isn't the time. And they need to reach some kind of agreement of at least get it down to 2 people or 3 at most. But 8 people, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but generally speaking, Randy, it comes down to 2 or 3. I mean, even if you look at the now, maybe in the congressional district 1, maybe it's 4 people. Listen, I understand what you're saying. The other side of the coin, though, is on the Democrat side. You know, they get their marching orders, and you better not get out of line. And I know there's some of that in the Republican side, but I'd like to think that the Republicans are a little bit more independent in their thinking. And frankly, I want a citizenry legislation. I mean, I want the legislature to be made up of businessmen, people with a variety of backgrounds, people with a variety of demographics, black, white, male, female. I do think we need a lot more business people in there, and it's more disappointing to me that you see these lifelong politicians that jump in. You know, they run for city council and their career is on the political track. I'd much rather see people from a variety of different backgrounds, especially business backgrounds. We got plenty of lawyers there. We need more businessmen.
Or some type of organizational leadership position. Maybe not necessarily business. It could be other things. But I'm you know, I don't like seeing when I look at a candidate's background and they've basically worked for political campaigns their entire career.
Yeah.
I mean,
then they say, "Hey, now it's my turn."
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it also could say that, you know, hey, the Republicans have got a deeper bench than the Democrats.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with your. I do agree that it would be good to get some of these people together and say, "Boy, let's not tear each other apart because it's going to be used in the general election." But B, let's save our ammo, keep it dry, so we can use it in the general election.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree with what both of you just said. I'm just saying, but by the time you get this deep into it to election day, it just seems like we're doing the Democratic Party's work for them when you start having our people tear each other apart.
Now I agree with that, Randy. I think these candidates should be giving you a reason to vote for them, not vote against someone else. Yeah. Now, I agree with that.
Yeah, and you know, I'm giving it away here. I will just say this. I did not vote for the person that I thought was the best candidate in the U.S. Senate race in terms of who, you know, the person that I thought would do the best job. I did not vote for that person because I just didn't feel like they had a chance of winning. But and maybe that's wrong of me, but you know, I usually vote for who I think is the most conservative candidate that also has the best shot of winning. But Randy, thanks for your input. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening. 561-8255. So Karine Jean-Pierre, the new press secretary.
Ooh, she was reading from some scripts, wasn't she? And she wasn't doing a very good job.
I tell you what, I have got the audio. We're going to play it here in a second. But apparently she's a great admirer of Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris's word salad answers on world events. Peter Doocy, when I heard he was going to be a White House correspondent, I thought, I don't know how well that's going to go over. He is... Peter, I am sorry. Anything I ever thought that was negative about you, you're the only one that has a couple. And all these others, and listen, you know what? I look at when they're in this press room, I look at these liberals who are looking at Peter as he's asking these questions, and I actually see admiration in their eyes. Now, I know politically they're probably in disagreement with him, but they're probably thinking to themselves, man, I wish I had enough chutzpah to ask the questions that he asked. Anyway, yesterday, Peter Doocy asked Jean-Pierre about a recent Biden tweet claiming that the way to deal with the current inflation rate would be to use tax increases to make sure, quote, you've heard this before, the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. Here's the question, and here's the answer.
He tweeted, "You want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share." Look, we have talked about this past year about making sure that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share. And that is important to do, and that is something that the president has been working on every day when we talk about inflation and lowering costs. And so it's very important that as we're seeing costs rise, as we're talking about how to build an America that's safe, that's equal for everyone and doesn't leave everyone behind, that is an important part of that as well.
But how does raising taxes on corporations lower the cost of gas, the cost of a used car, the cost of food for everyday Americans?
So look, I think we encourage those who have done very well, right, especially those who care about climate change, to support a fair tax code that doesn't charge manufacturers, workers, cops, builders a higher percentage of their earnings, that the most fortunate people in our nation, and not let that stand in the way of reducing energy costs and fighting this existential problem, if you think about that as an example. And to support basic collective bargaining rights as well, right? That's also important. But look, it is, without having a fair tax code, which is what I'm talking about, then manufacturing workers, cops, it's not fair for them to have to pay higher taxes than the folks who are not paying taxes at all.
Wow. So collective bargaining and climate change is going to help bring down inflation.
And that last part that she said, cops and I can't remember if she said teachers, essentially saying that same Democrat lie that they pay more taxes than corporate CEOs, and that is an absolute lie. I mean,
listen, the idea that corporations aren't paying taxes, the shareholders pay the taxes. They're the ones that own the corporations.
Yeah, I mean, I could get deep in the weeds and probably lose interest in our audience here, but corporate taxes. I mean, there's an argument that whatever taxes they pay, they're not paying it. The consumer is paying it when they buy the product.
Bingo.
But the fact, you just go look at the facts of who pays the taxes, and it's wealthy Americans. Yeah. I mean, there's some loopholes that I could get into details of that I think should go away, but they still finance this government. Not even close to that lie that they keep saying, and that's what it is, because they're smarter than that.
Author Nick Adams, Republican, wrote that Jean-Pierre, what doesn't curb inflation, taxing the rich, which does curb inflation, increase labor participation, reduce government spending, quantitative tightening, lower energy prices. Somebody give Karine Jean-Pierre some notes, some better notes than what she read off of.
Yeah, she's got a ways to go to be as slick as Jen Psaki was on spinning the lies. We're always making predictions. We're always wrong. But I bet she does not last as long as Psaki lasts. Yeah, I don't know if you heard her open yesterday, but she opened about the monumental achievement of her being an immigrant, her being
make me vomit.
Her being a
black lesbian,
the first. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of those things. I care about if you know what in the hell you're doing, and that's what most people care about.
We got to take another timeout. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Reserve it, then ride home in it at Greenville Toyota. Camrys, Corollas, Tundra trucks, RAV4s, and more are on the way. Reserve yours before it's gone. Plus, get more for your trade. Reserve and ride today at Greenville Toyota.
Hey, we're at Maribella's in Greenville, the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. If you haven't been to this place yet, let me tell you, you are missing out. I want to introduce my friends from Maribella's. I've got Sal, Massimo, and Pietro here. These guys are awesome. Not only do they make great food, they do a lot of things for the community, which we're going to be talking about. But Sal, let's start with you. Let's talk about the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. I'm a regular here. I love it. You guys call it Old World Pizza. Tell us what's different about your pizza.
Well, we got two kinds of pizzas. We have the traditional, American style, and then we have the Old World Pizza, which is made with fresh mozzarella, and the way they do it in Italy.
Massimo, when you talk about doing this food right, it's authentic. And when I talk about authentic, you grew up in Italy, so you grew up with this food. You know how to make it.
Yeah,
because we grew up in Italy, we know the ingredient, and everything we do from scratch. And the right ingredient it's been hard for us to bring over here. And now finally we can get the right ingredient to make a right pizza.
All right, now I'm going to talk to my friend Pietro here at Marabella's. He's got the Nino's shirt on today. We're going to talk about Nino's, which is another great dining experience, upscale dining experience, on another segment upcoming. But Pietro, let's talk about Marabella's. For people who've never been to Marabella's, what's the experience going to be like when they come here? Not only pizzas, but pastas, salads, sandwiches, you got it all.
Yes, we do. We have new sandwiches that we put in this new location, and we're going to spread it to the other locations.
The guys here at Marabella's have won national pizza competitions, so you know it's good. Thanks to Sal, Massimo, and Pietro. Folks, do yourself a favor. Come to the new Marabella's here on Fire Tower Road in Greenville, or Marabella's on Greenville Boulevard, or Marabella's in Washington on Carolina Avenue. Also, don't forget upscale dining at Nino's on Red Banks Road.
Reserve and ride your pre-owned vehicle at Greenville Toyota. Shop a huge selection of quality used cars, trucks, SUVs, even luxury models, all with no charge maintenance, plus a 100,000-mile used car warranty. Reserve and ride at Greenville Toyota.
We speak the language of news. Let us translate.
Our policies are working.
They told me to read this. I'm not allowed to go off script, or I will get in trouble.
When they talk,
there are still predictions.
How dare you ask me that? I am way smarter than you. I'm up here, you're down there.
We'll explain.
What unifies us is the
nonsense, unintelligible nonsense.
What happens next happens here with Tom and Benny on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back on this Tuesday, May 17th, primary day. And if you hadn't voted yet, polls are open, I believe, till 7:30. Is that right, Clark? I believe that's right, till 7:30. So a lot of early voting done already, as we discussed early in the program. But if you hadn't voted, please exercise your constitutional right to vote and vote for who best suits what you believe in. And you still some time to get out. Programming note: tomorrow we've got a couple of guests tomorrow. Later in the program tomorrow, we have John Bell, the North Carolina House. His district, I'm sorry, John, forgive me, but I can't remember what district that is, but he's over in Wayne County. But he will be here tomorrow to talk about some legislative priorities in the short session. So he will be at 5:45. And at 5:15, we will have David Walker. You may be familiar with David Walker. We've had him on at least a couple of times. I've known David since, probably 2008 or 9, when he was former Comptroller General of the United States, and he has been screaming to the top of his lungs about the debt problems in the United States and where we will be in a few years. And he's written a couple of bestsellers about it. He wrote an op-ed with the Washington Times last week, and we will have him tomorrow at 5:15 to discuss what can Congress do and what the states can do and what we as voters can do to see if we can get Congress's attention. And that's tomorrow at 5:15. Yesterday, an article out of the Washington Times, Charles Hurt. Charles Hurt is a Washington Times correspondent, also a Fox News contributor on one of the shows for Fox News, has written print media for years. He had an article about the tragedy in Buffalo, New York. We see this time and time again when the Democrats and politicians, the mainstream media, follows right their lead. It's like they're connected at the hip on these issues. Everyone knows it was a just a gruesome, awesome tragedy for anyone that lost a family member in that. But the left's agenda always goes straight out and tries to divide people again and talk about the talk about it. And he had a great piece in the Washington Times talking about it where the Democrats, just as soon as they could get in front of the TV, they start talking about the white supremacist issue. And yes, the guy had I think 180-page manifesto that went into, all sorts of racial things. But it also, he also ran down conservatives, Jews, everybody you can think of. The guy obviously had a mental health issue. And but the Democrats want to get political points. And here today, Joe Biden goes up to Buffalo to, console the families is how it's sold, but he goes into it. It was a political move on his part, but he did not attend the Wisconsin tragedy here back during Christmas when the guy that ran over, I think it was 60 hurt, maybe 5 or 6 killed in the Christmas parade up in Wisconsin. And this particular man that did that was an African American that had all sorts of social media posts where he was, you can make the argument that he was a black supremacist. And, he sends Jill Biden. And there's, wasn't a lot of focus on the White House. Wasn't a lot of focus just a few weeks ago when there was a subway bombing in New York. And that was a black man that just went up and started shooting the subway. Just an awful, awful tragedy. I think the focus should be more on that Buffalo tragedy as opposed to making it a political issue. Let's talk about the mental health issue in the United States. It was a young man, 18 years old, from all reports is from a normal family, if you will. His parents were engineers, and he just recently graduated from high school. Let's look at the mental health issue. He had been in, I think, a day and a half in the hospital last summer for some comments he made about maybe shooting up a high school or something like that. We've got a mental health problem in this America. There's no reason that they should politicize something for political gain. If he truly went up there to console the families, then there shouldn't be any cameras around. He shouldn't get up and make announcements and talk about it. He should just go console the families if that's what it's all about. But if you check out on the Washington Times Charles Hurt's article, and he talks about it, it's a great article, and we're going to try to have Charles on one day this week if possible. But I got to know Charles here a couple of weeks ago, met him at an event, and so we'll try to get him to talk about that when he comes on. As I said earlier, tomorrow at 5:15 we'll have Dave Walker, and Dave Walker will talk about his article and his book he had out last year about we're getting to a point with our national debt where it may be no return. We are 70% of our federal budget is health care, Social Security, and Medicare and interest. And if we don't get a hold of that, it may be no point of no return. So we're going to take a break and be back, and come and join us. Take care.
We're on location today at Fabric and Home Furnishings, Arlington Village on Arlington Boulevard here in Greenville. One of my favorite places in town, one of my favorite people in town. My buddy Lisa Pendry is here. And Lisa, when I walked in this morning, the place always looks great, but there's something new here. You got a brand new room. Tell us what's going on.
We do, Henry. We are opening a Norwalk gallery, and we are so excited because this company is so custom. Been in business since 1902, built in Norwalk, Ohio. Tons of wood colors to choose from, over 900 fabric choices, and I've got a design team that can make it fabulous and help you find unique styles.
So when you say custom, a custom furniture line, what does that mean exactly?
You can literally choose the cushion, the fabric. You can even choose the thread color with this company. So wood choices, amazing fabrics, put 3 fabrics on one sofa, as much fun as you want to have.
And that's what people want these days. They want it to be exactly the way they want it, so you can get that with Norwalk.
You can.
All right, what else is new? You've always got some other interesting things going on here.
Well, we have some new fabrics that have arrived, but I've also, in this new showroom, I've added a friend of mine that's opened a company in Hickory, North Carolina called Hickory Luxe. Done business with him for a long time, but we're adding to that because he can deliver in 6 to 8 weeks instead of 8 months like some of these companies are, doing right now.
And as we always say, Fabric and Home Furnishings is a furniture store and so much more. And the so much more is you guys offer design services. I know you're a designer yourself. You have a design team here, so you can offer that full service for people.
I do. I've got the best design team ever. We do commercial design and residential. And there's a lot of decisions that go into what you want your home to be. So we send somebody right out to the house for a flat one-time fee, not an hourly fee. And we analyze it, make a friend, and make it easy and painless and fabulous for people.
Fabric and home furnishings here in Arlington Village. My friend Lisa Pendry. It's a furniture store and so much more. Come see them.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you farm to fork beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to fork beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
Empty lots at car dealers everywhere, except here. The selection you want is at Greenville Nissan. And during the Nissan Thrill of the Drive sales event, buy a new Nissan with financing as low as 0.9%. The versatile Nissan Rogue, the all-new Pathfinder, or gas-saving cars like Nissan Sentra and Altima. And yes, we have trucks. Buy the new Nissan Titan with 0.9% financing, or the all-new Frontier for $99 a month. Hurry to Greenville Nissan, where we drive to serve.
This is your Drive at 5 and ENC with Tom Lamprecht. Welcome back to News and Views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back. Continue some stories that's been on several outlets today. The New York Post, Fox News, several outlets. Apparently, Black Lives Matter's Form 990, which is a nonprofit 501c3 tax reporting form to the IRS, hit the waves and has got a lot of information on it. So it looks like the race baiting industry pays pretty well. The co-founder's brother, Patrisse Cullors' brother, Paul Cullors, saw $840,000 hit his bank account from Black Lives Matter, as well as consulting fees of $970,000 to produce live events. Now, the foundation had a $4 million operating budget and $42 million in assets. They collected $90 million, and at the end of the year, they had $42 million in real estate and stocks. And as you remember, I don't know, here several weeks ago, it was uncovered that they bought Ms. Cullors a house for, I think, $6 million somewhere in L.A. So apparently the race baiting industry that started during the George Floyd protests, and they held hostage corporate and institutional America for money, it seems like they're benefiting privately and not really spending a lot of money in these communities that could actually use it. The Form 990 documents 63 pages, and it talks about also $120,000 payment for undisclosed consulting fees to Patrisse Cullors. Again, now she's no longer with the organization, according to the organization itself. She resigned as executive director. But here's just another case of, if you're going to help the community, help the community. And these things right here, there's absolutely no way you can justify these type of consulting fees to your family and friends and that type of thing. And Bowers, that's executive director of the organization, she received over $2 million for providing operational support, staff, and fundraising. So it's all out there. Once the 990 hit the because it's public information. The public charity is public information. You can go out there and find it, and it's just another case of people taking advantage of a situation and using a tragedy like the George Floyd tragedy to benefit them privately. Got a story today that was actually out of WCTI. It's one of them stories you just got to cover. A water tower in Arkansas is going viral after someone shot it, but it's where the shot landed that has people talking. The water tower in Kingsland, Arkansas, about an hour from Little Rock, has a tower with Johnny Cash on it, painted on it, and someone, silhouette, and someone has shot the tower and shot Johnny Cash silhouette in the groin. So water is leaking out of the tower, and I mean, it's just, you got to see it to believe it. It was on WCTI today. And, hey, I guess it's one of those things, maybe Johnny was trying to find that ring of fire. What do you think? And put it out. But I just had to talk about it. It was just kind of funny. But anyway, that's it for today. Look, polls are open till 7:30 tonight. Go out and vote and cast your ballot for who you want to win. And we will cover what some of the surprises tomorrow. Some not surprises, but we'll have all the race covers tomorrow. We'll have David Walker at 5:15, John Bell about 5:45. And please come and join us tomorrow. I think we'll have an informative program with the elections coverage. And have a good evening, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Take care.
All right.